welcome. We are going to explore Sketch and Tell today. So I am going to share a link in the chat, and I will make sure that I will share all of the resources too in the chat. So there's going to be a couple different links in the chat throughout today's session. So make sure you have that up before we kind of get started. Here's a link. It's going to take you to a Google form. I'd love for you to fill it out so that way I can send you all of the resources. And that way, if we have any questions or need anything else, I'll make sure to add it into that email. And then you can email me back with any questions, or if you need something, or you're like, I don't know what I need to do next. So again, welcome everyone. Let me make sure I got everyone from the waiting room in. You might see that link pop up again. This is for Sketch and Tell, one of my absolute favorite EduProtocols. I would love to know in the chat, have you ever used Sketch and Tell? So let us know in the chat if you have used Sketch and Tell, or if you're like, I have no idea what Sketch and Tell is. Oh, I use it every single week. Awesome. Okay, no, yes, new to EduProtocols. Awesome. So there's like a wide range of different folks here. So we're going to cover a couple different areas when it comes to using Sketch and Tell. If you have used EduProtocols in the past, you could think about rack and stack and how you could rack and stack Sketch and Tell with another EduProtocol that you use today. But if you're new, I highly recommend just using one EduProtocol at a time. And then once you get really good, you're ready to kind of go. All right, so again, my name is Stephanie Howell, and I am a instructional coach. So I help a lot of different teachers from around the world, and I have a lot of fun doing that. So if you ever need help or need anything, please reach out to me. I'd love to support and help you in any way that I can. I'm going to put the Google link for that tiny URL in the chat again. This is going to take you to a Google form. You're going to put your name, your email, and then you'll pick right here where it says EduProtocols Worldwide, and I'll make sure I share all of the slides and resources with you after today. It is recorded, okay? So it just takes Chris, I think, a couple weeks to get all of those recordings ready to go. So you will also have the recording of this session too. And so when it comes to Sketch and Tell, what we're able to kind of think is when we're using Sketch and Tell within our classrooms, it is where students are able to draw, sketch, and then they tell and write about it. So they're kind of using doodles, they're telling about it with writing. And so it's a great process a lot of times for students when it comes to reflection. So you can think of using Sketch and Tell in your classroom, maybe for vocabulary, where students have a vocabulary word and they have to sketch a landform. So maybe I'm teaching my fourth graders about landform, and our word is mountain. They would sketch a mountain, and then they would have to tell me about the mountain. You could use it for math reasoning, where students maybe have to show how they solved a problem by using the sketch. They maybe have to sketch a model. They might have to sketch an equation. And then they might actually tell each of those steps and how they solved it by using their words. So what I really love about Sketch and Tell is it takes students to those levels of their learning where they're not just showing it, right? They're not just only showing it or writing it, they're doing both. And so again, you can use it in a lot of different ways. We're going to explore a lot of different ways, and then we're also going to reflect and think about what roadblocks might we have when we try to implement Sketch and Tell, and how can we overcome those. So we feel ready to go for Monday, because you could for sure use Sketch and Tell ready to go on Monday for any subject, any area with your students. So Sketch and Tell, here is the recipe card. So first, students have a source. A source could be multiple different things, okay? A source could be an article. A source could be a video. A source could be whatever you are teaching your students. It could be a mini lesson. There's a lot of different resources that you could use when it comes to using a source. Then typically, you have like a piece of paper or a digital platform or some type of resource. And then your students will draw on one side of the piece of paper and then they tell about it. Or if you're using like a digital application, they might draw and then like the next slide, they might tell about it. If you're using Google Slides, it might be side by side. So again, there's a lot of different ways that students can kind of sketch and tell. Typically, it's not screenshots. So typically it is them drawing is the original sketch and tell, but we're also going to think about some ways that we might be able to think through when it comes to using sketch and tell with food or with manipulatives. So we're also going to kind of explore different ways that we can use sketch and tell, and it doesn't just have to be drawings, but getting our students hands-on and creative. Heidi says that she can no longer see my slides. Can everybody else see my slides? Because when I click my screen in Zoom, I can. So I just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. So Heidi, just make sure you maybe click my screen up at the top and maybe you can see it. Because I can see it if I go to my screen in Zoom. All right, so first our students learn. They dive into a topic through a quick video. It could be a mini lesson. It could be an article. It can also be like an AI space. Then they sketch about it. This is where their learning comes to life. They could use the Google Shapes, and you could kind of limit your students' ideas thus through using shapes. You might have your students use Legos or even gummy bears to kind of build out and they sketch their ideas. Then they tell about it. So then they use their explaining to think about and they tell the slide of what makes it and why. And then you can do either a think, pair, share where students show it off. Maybe you have a gallery walk. Maybe they share with a partner and then they share with the class. But this can look multiple different ways. So for us, what I want us to kind of do is I want us to think about this question. I want students to remember something, right? And so we need to ask them to sometimes draw it. And so there is a really great article that I'm going to share in the chat, and I'm going to set a timer for us to practice using Sketch and Tell. So this article is an EduTopia article. And what we're going to do is I'm going to share the resource with you in the chat. This is about the science of drawing and memory. Okay, so again, the first step with Sketch and Tell is I share some type of resource with my student, an article, a video, a mini lesson. Today it's an article. And I want you to kind of skim this article. And as you're skimming it, I'm also going to have you sketch and tell about it. Okay, so you're going to enter into this student space. We're going to use AI today to help us think through sketch and tell. And after you read the article, kind of skimming it, because you're going to get about 7 minutes, you're going to join this space. So both links are in the chat. This is going to kind of walk you through, and I want you to think about how confident do you maybe feel when you're using drawing with your learners. Like, do you feel good about it? Do you not feel good about it? And then once you kind of share about that, then I would like for you to doodle something that was a takeaway from you from that article. Okay, so you're going to sketch. You can use the shapes. You can use these little sticky notes. You can use the pen to draw, whatever you want to use to draw out what your takeaways were from that article. I would love for you to draw that out. Then you're going to share about 3 to 5 sentences in the tell me area about what those takeaways were. Okay, and then there's a couple reflection questions for you to ponder as well. So again, I'm going to set about 7 minutes, and I just want you to kind of use that article. Okay, so this EduTopia article about the science of drawing. Then you're going to enter into that School AI space and share, chat with Dot, and then you're going to share about your sketch. What was your biggest takeaway? And then I want you to tell me about it using about 2 to 3 sentences would be great. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to put the links in the chat again because I know we have some folks joining, so you might see them come up a couple times. But right there, I've got a 1 and a 2. I'm going to start a 7-minute timer. I'm here if you need anything or you have questions. I'm also going to be watching mission control data to see how you're doing. All right, 7 minutes is starting now. About 3 minutes left of our sketch and tell activity. If you are watching the recording, I have a link right here if you want to join in if you're watching the recording. So you'll go to schoolai.com and then it will say code. So if you go to schoolai.com, there's going to be a code where it says space code, and then you can type in the code again. If you're watching the recording, or if you're joining from a phone, that works too. I would also love to see your sketches. So if you have already drew your sketch, I added mine in the chat. If you would take a screenshot of it so others can see your sketch, do that before the end of the 2 minute mark. So add your sketch in if you're feeling confident in that. Really love seeing these takeaways. Some of us are like, I've used sketching for vocabulary, but not really too many other things, right? Or maybe I've used it in note taking, but I haven't used it, with learning or reflection. So again, I would love to see your sketches. We've got about 1 minute and 46 seconds left. Awesome. Okay, that time is up. So again, you went through a sketch and tell activity that your students might go through. Usually I set a timer. So I did 7 minutes because I wanted you to also read or skim that article. So 7 minutes was the time. It looks like, most of you had your drawings completed in that time. Usually I am a stickler on the time, right? So that way the next time my students know, hey, when I say 10 minutes, I mean 10 minutes. So being kind of harsh with those times can be really helpful in the beginning, even though they might not finish. But just saying, okay, you have, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you have that discussion. So then next time they know, I better get reading right away. I better get into that school AI space right away. I better get into whatever they need to right away to begin that drawing. Sometimes if they have learned the material in a mini lesson, it might just be 5 minutes because they've learned the material ahead of time. They're not reading an article, they're not doing something else with the sketch and tell. So it might be a shorter amount of time of sketch the key takeaways that you had and then tell me about it. Okay, so again, I love seeing your sketches in the chat. Would love for you to take that screenshot. My biggest takeaway from that article, again, the science of drawing and memory, is that the research, from this university is you don't have to be a good at drawing, right? And I think that was really hard for me when I was like in school because I'm not an artist. Like you can definitely tell right here, like this little circle thing that I drew, I am not an artist. And so for me, when I'm thinking through sketch and tell, I got a little nervous because I'm like, I'm not an artist. Like my kids make fun of what I draw, but it's not about being good at drawing. Drawing and sketching can be really helpful for that brain. Yeah, I just love what Miss C put in the chat. If you guys look in the chat at her drawing right there, it's talking about, input to the brain, process that input. Then we've got the drawing. And so students are able to draw, label, and organize their thoughts by using drawing to really support their thinking. Okay, so that was kind of a really great takeaway for me. And what I love about using a program like School AI is my students can get feedback from School AI as they're working. So as they're working in this space, Dot is chatting with them and it's able to kind of say like, oh yeah, you drew this, right? And I can have that conversation. There's additional questions. If I need sentence starters, I can support my students with sentence starters to get them to think about. So when it comes to that share out, now I can get my students to share. So I could either call on students by looking over their insights. I could be like, oh my gosh, I really, really love what Heidi shared, right? Yeah, I'm very low at being self-efficient in my art skills, right? Or I might feel a little bit nervous of drawing things. And so again, I can come in here and I can see how my students are doing along the progress. There's also a step, so I can see which step of the agenda they're on. If you looked in your space, you'll notice up here that there's a confidence check. Then they read the article. Then there's a quick sketch. I can see which part of the agenda my students are on. And so that's when I can go, okay, 3 minutes left. Where are most of my students at based on these agenda skills to kind of monitor, support based on where every single student is at. So I love to kind of use a program like School AI because then I can really monitor. I can see those quick wins that my students are having or misconceptions that they might be having as well. Okay, so that can be kind of a great way to kind of monitor your students throughout Sketch and Tell. So now that we've been through kind of an example where you read an article. So again, step one is where we learn something. Step two, we sketch about it. Then we tell about it with maybe 2 to 3 different sentences. Then we share. So then we can share in a classroom discussion. Now we're going to kind of think through our subject areas when it comes to Sketch and Tell. So here are a bunch of different examples that have been shared like on social media when it comes to Sketch and Tell. You can see here this first example is a history example. And I was able to see that this teacher, or this student used some Google images to sketch their image. And then down here in this little box, they explained what those images meant. Now, again, we talked about how you don't just have to do digital art or you don't have to do art on a whiteboard or you don't have to use a piece of paper. You can also use clay. So I really like this one, how this teacher had their students use clay. They took a picture of it and then they added those labels. So adding those labels can be extra supportive for our students' learning. And then they tell about it. You could also do like a sketch and comic kind of feel where students kind of draw out a sketch where they're explaining like a comic to what kind of took place in history. And then they're telling about it. Or maybe you have some Legos. They're going to build, they're going to sketch, take a picture of that, and tell about it. You could also use gummy bears. And maybe the students get to eat them at the end of building that gummy bear. Okay. And then tell. So then they can tell about what just took place. So there's a lot of different ideas of ways that you're able to use that sketch and tell within your own classroom. Students can sketch symbols of maybe ancient Egypt if they're learning about that, and then they can explain why they chose it. They could draw a map of different colonies and regions and explain those regions in that tell. Maybe you're a science teacher. They can model the water cycle or some type of cycle in science. And then they can explain each of those different parts. Maybe it's an SEL. Sketch your mood today and tell me what's going on. How's your week going, right? So I want you to think about what you teach. And in the chat, share. I want you to share kind of what are you thinking after seeing and hearing about some of these ideas? Are you kind of like, oh, let's use paper and pencil. Let's use digital. Let's use Oreos. What are you thinking for your next sketch and tell activity? I love what the question in the chat from Heidi was. I wonder about how students sketch things that are more abstract. And I just loved, yes, that answer, right? So we got how they decide to represent those things would really give you really good insight on how they're processing. I agree. So as your students are kind of thinking through, as they're drawing, as they're telling, that kind of tells you, do they get this? It's not a quick multiple choice guess type answer. They have to sketch it out. They have to use their thoughts and ideas of how they're going to represent the material that they're learning. Okay. So yeah, because I can kind of see how is it that my students maybe set that up. Yeah, and Jackie, we're going to walk through how I might use AI to help support this as well. So we are going to walk through how I kind of created my space too. Awesome. I like the comic idea. Yeah, that one's really cool. And you could provide the boxes, or again, you could allow your students to create those boxes for their comic. You could say like a comic and tell. I think there's another session today on sketch, and there's like it's like Sketcho, and there's like little circles. So that's another really good one. I think that I saw that on the agenda for later today. Yeah, it's called a session 3. Or wait, no, that's Sketch and Tell. Is this a test? Let me see if there is one. I'm looking at it right now. Maybe there isn't. But if you check the Facebook group, there's one with like Sketch and Tell, and it's like with circles. So it's really cool. Multiple different ways that you can think about how you might do this. But when I first start, I might just do a drawing and a telling. And then as my students get stronger and stronger and stronger at it, I might use Legos, I might use Oreos, I might use Google, whatever I need to use, I might use that instead. Awesome. Okay, so make sure you check out the chat because there are some really great ideas on implementing Sketch and Tell within your classroom. Okay, so there's like ideas that I plan on stealing as well. So make sure you check out that chat for additional ideas. So now I'm going to walk through how I might create a sketch and tell activity for my students, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of walk through my procedures because the next activity that we're going to go through is I want you to think about the steps that you're going to take to introduce sketch and tell in your classroom. You already shared a kind of your tell in the chat, so you're going to kind of sketch it out. But what I want to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go to schoolai.com. And I'm going to go ahead and unlock beta. Okay. The platform here has a lot of great features, but the chat is very, very focused on like a chat. Beta has those power ups where you saw those doodle boards. Okay. Now it is beta. So I do want to like throw out a disclaimer that it could be a little buggy at times. So hopefully we can create one today, but the engineers are working through the beta process. So at times it might be just a little bit buggy. So once I get to beta, if you ever need to return to the previous experience, over here on the left-hand side, you can return and it will take you back to the platform. So again, up here in the blue, I can unlock and I can go into my beta. I'm going to hit create a space and I'm going to choose student learning. Okay. I want to use vocab because I feel like vocab is a great way to start using Sketch and Tell. However, you can use whatever ideas you have that you thought of in the chat. So maybe, for example, I want my students to use the EduProtocol Sketch and Tell. Okay, so I just kind of say what it is that I want my students to do. They are in the 7th grade, and students are learning about photosynthesis. Okay, so I just kind of share a vocabulary word or a unit that my students are going to be creating. And from here, I can say, I want them to sketch the definition or example of photosynthesis. And I want them to tell me about it in 2 to 3 sentences. Okay, so I'm just kind of throwing out my ideas into the space. So I'm just kind of thinking through what is it that I want my students to do. Oh, perfect. Dot loves my idea. Look at that. We're going to use Sketch and Tell as a creative way for your students to show their understanding. To confirm, this is for 7th grade science. And yeah, it's saying 5th grade because that's what I chose in my settings, but I teach multiple grades. So I'm going to say yes, 7th grade science. So if you set up your account, it should be more catered to what you teach. I support multiple areas, so I just picked fifth grade ELA because that was one of my favorites. Would you like help setting up the space? Yes, help me set up the space. Okay. And so I can kind of walk through with AI, or you could set the space up by yourself, but I really like to think through with AI this activity. So we're creating a sketch and tell for seventh grade science focuses on photosynthesis. Before we define AI's role, do you have any other ideas? Nope, I don't. Okay, so again, I can just kind of create step by step. What is this that I want it to look like? Now I have to define the role. Do I want AI to be a curious explorer that asks follow-up questions about my student's sketch? Or do I want them to be a science tutor that gives them feedback and encouragement? I'm going to go with the science tutor. Okay, so again, I'm going to come in, answer those questions. And then I come in and I can see, okay, we've got seventh grade science. It's just kind of re-explaining what I already have. Let's define what the students' tasks are. Do you want to draft it on your own, or do I need maybe help? So I'm just going to say, I want to help and I want to use Sketch and Tell. And so here we kind of have our detailed instructions. So we're going to sketch a diagram that shows the process of photosynthesis, and then they can write 2 to 3 sentences. I could do draw a real life example, or I could create a comic strip showing the steps of photosynthesis. So now I can decide which of these activities I like best. And what I love about using AI is I have a thinking partner. I can have this activity and I can be like, oh, my students are really struggling with photosynthesis. Let's just do this. Or I could say, actually, they're really understanding the process. Let's go ahead and do step 3. So I really love using AI to help me. Or if you wanted to differentiate it, you could have 3 different spaces with these 3 different ideas as well. So I'm going to go ahead. I like number 3. I like the comic strip idea. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I chose that one. You could choose a mix. You could say, give me 5 more ideas. I don't like that idea. And now that we picked that task, we're going in and now we're going through where our students will sketch and diagram, and then they're going to explain it in 2 to 3 sentences. Then they are going to come in and they are going to be able to get that feedback. Okay. And what I love about it is I have a class size of like 30 students. So giving them feedback can really be really difficult. Where with AI, if they don't know something, they can ask the chatbot, they can ask a question if I set up those guide rails for to support my students. Okay. So now I'm going to come in and I can kind of adjust any of these instructions that I might want to do. So right here, we're going to give a warm feedback with that comic strip, encourage students, even if they missed any details, always ask 1 follow-up questions. So now I'm ready. And so again, using this can really help me think through the task and my learning objectives for my students. So now we can kind of see I can adjust any of these instructions, give encouraging feedback on both the comic and the summary, highlighting strengths, and then it can ask 1 follow-up question about their comic. So yeah, I do want them to reflect. So ready to go. Okay, again, you can change any pieces of this that you might want to as you're working through with your students. Maybe you don't want to use a technology. You could take this idea that you're brainstorming with creating a space, and then you could create your directions that are actually on paper, or maybe you're using another system. So you could kind of use what you're brainstorming with AI to really help you as well in another way too. All right, so we're almost done. There's 3 possible rules. Okay, so keep feedback under 3 sentences and always start with a positive comment. Yep, I really like the feedback sandwich, so I'm going to keep number 1. Again, you could change this to 4 sentences. You could say 1 sentence. I could say don't give feedback at all. You're able to create different guide rails so the AI is not going to do the work for your students. Right here, I can ask 1 follow-up question per student submission. I don't want to overwhelm my students, so I'm going to keep that. Right here, don't add extra facts, encourage students to use their own knowledge. And so now that I have this kind of set, now I've got my guardrails and now I can track my insights. Okay, so ready. And what that's saying is when it's saying about insights, that is what do you want to see pop up over here? What is it that I want to see for my learning outcomes over here, how my students are doing? And so now I can say, use misconceptions. I really want to know if my students are having any misconceptions. So I can quickly give a resource or provide them with any additional informations that can help them, right? I also want to know though, like, can they clearly give the steps? So you can pick one, you can pick multiple ones, and now it's going to create this agenda step. So based on this activity, we're going to take that photosynthesis, and AI is now going to create a student learning opportunity for my students. Just like when you were in my space. So when you were in this space right here, I'm going to go ahead and hit invite. Students are going to go through, and they're going to go through different steps. So they're able to join your space. They're going to go through different steps in order to show their knowledge using Sketch and Tell. But this time we use vocabulary. So right here, we're students have all of these different steps. Okay, so these are the agenda items. We can come in here and I can make any changes that I want to. This is going to take 8 to 12 minutes. Perfect, right? You can tell the AI when you're brainstorming how long you want it to take. Now I can come in here and I can see each of the different steps. Students are going to plan out their panels. They're going to create their comic strips. They're going to write their summary. You also might notice that right here it says outcomes. Students provide a brief outline of each panel. Okay, so they're just going to kind of provide a quick brain dump of what their panels are going to look like. If they do this on mission control, they're going to get a 4. Okay, so you can see here my scores. Right here, each of these steps get a score. So AI is going to grade your students' work out of mastery to show, did they do each part of those agenda steps? On the next step, where they're creating their comic, student submits the comic via the doodle board and provides a clear text description of each panel. Okay, if they do that, they get a 4. Then they write a summary. They write 2 to 3 sentences. If they only write one sentence, they're not going to get a 4. They're going to get like a 1 or a 2. So again, this can be a great way for you to also get that feedback about how your students are doing in that space. For when they create their comic, you'll notice that there's a power up. If I go in here, there are multiple ways for students to demonstrate their knowledge. You could do a mind map. You could do an image generator where students have to explain. Maybe you do it reverse, where the students tell about whatever they're learning, and then AI image generates that topic for your students. Maybe you want to use flashcards to pre-build or build prior knowledge to support students. There are a lot of different power-ups built in here that now students aren't just chatting with a chatbot, but now they're taking their thinking to a whole nother level where they're able to think through, get feedback, have those adoptions, ask questions if they need to. And they can use that doodle board to now not just chat with a chatbot, but actually demonstrate and show their knowledge as well. Okay, so here we go. I've got my photosynthesis comic lab and I can launch it. Always recommend that you launch it or preview it before you send it out to your students. That way you can get a nice feel for what that sketch and tell is going to look like. And sometimes I'll share with my students this up on the board and we'll kind of do it together, like we do it together. Now I want you to go and do it by yourself, right? And so here we've got, what's the plan? And so then students are able to think through and they're able to really kind of consider, what is the plan? How do I want to demonstrate photosynthesis? What I love is it automatically, and again, this is all in your guidelines, can provide sentence starters. A lot of my students really struggle with getting started. And so right here, I can be that student that's like, I don't know, right? And it's gonna be able to scaffold to support that student. Where if you have a student that is excelling, you will be able to excel their knowledge by providing those extensions if you need to, right? So again, I've kind of got right here, I don't know. No worries, try this. Panel 1 could maybe have the sunlight shines on a leaf. Panel 2 could be the leaf takes the air and water. So again, I can kind of have those scaffolds. Again, you can totally take those away if you don't want that. Maybe this is a formative or summative assessment that you're going to use to see how your students are taking in their knowledge. But maybe this is practice. Maybe this is a bell work activity, or maybe I'm trying to build background knowledge of my students. So that is where you can decide on when you're creating that space, what is it that you want to have and what is it that you don't want to have? I can see that this student is really struggling. Okay. I can also see that right away in my mission control as well. Okay. Um, so now I can kind of think through what is it that, I want my panels to maybe look like. Just give it a try. I'm getting that encouragement. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do my 4 panels. Now that I've got my 4 panels, it's going to take me to the next step where we're going to go to a comic strip. Great outline. I'm ready. And again, as a teacher, I can be looking at mission control to see how my students are doing. I can see, okay, are they understanding? Oh, the student's doing a lot better. They finally got a 3, right? They said they didn't know, but now they're a 3. They were able to get past it by using those scaffolds, by using that example. Now they can come in here and draw. And then I can say ready, right? I can explain what I draw by doing my tell. Okay, so that's one way that you could use AI to support you for a sketch and tell type of activity, which again can be really powerful if you need to support your students with feedback or seeing how they're doing throughout this activity. I can also group and look at progress. Who's on step 2? Who's finished this activity? Who is below level? Who is above level? And I can use this to help maybe make small group instructions or to provide my students with those extra scaffolds. Okay, I know that was a lot, so I want to pause. Are there any questions that you all have? Currently, the engineers are working on a way to be able to see the drawings, but right now the students would have to take like a screenshot and then they could upload them to the learning management system. But the team is working on that. Again, it's in beta, so it's not shown in mission control right now, but I can click and I can see everything that this student has said. Right there's the power up, but I can't click it right now, but I think eventually you will be able to do that. So right now I just have them usually take a picture and then add it into Google Classroom. It's kind of my workflow. Awesome. Okay, I don't see any other questions, but again, if you have questions, please, please, please let me know. Now what we're going to do is I want you to think about how you are going to implement this in your classroom. Okay, so I'm going to share another link and you're also going to get that feedback, right? So I want you to think about how this might feel as a student, right? And so think about kind of when it comes to using uh, Sketch and Tell, what steps do you need to take in order to introduce this to your students? Okay, so think about what steps do you need to take in order to maybe introduce this to your students. And I saw there was a question for Sketch and Tello. I'm going to find that template for you. Yeah, let me search my drive. I know I have a version of it in my Google Drive. But I want you to go ahead and enter. I'm going to set a quick, we'll do 6 minutes. Actually, we're going to do like 5 minutes. I lied. And I want you to just kind of think through, how will this look in your classroom? What are you brainstorming? Are you thinking of using just paper and pencil? Are you thinking of using this as a prior knowledge activity? Do you want to try using AI? Okay, so go ahead and you're going to sketch out and then tell me about it. Oh, I love what I'm seeing from the mission control data coming in. Using this as a sub-plan. Yeah, you can definitely use Sketch and Tell as a sub-plan. That can be a really great way to support your students' thinking and learning. I cannot find the Sketch and Tello in my drive, so I'm going to search for more and I'll email it to you all. So make sure you fill out that Google form. I promise I will keep searching. I'm going to search the Facebook group and I will email it. Make sure you fill out the Google form. I'm going to put that link in there. Oh, maybe somebody else found one. Maybe. Oh, nope, you submitted your picture. Oh, look at that. Looks so good. Awesome. But yeah, you could use this as a sub plan. You could use this. Let's see what else we've got. Yeah, using AI to help. I love that. I love how you're thinking about using AI to support as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop you. It's okay if you didn't finish. It looks like most of us got to step number 2, which was, I believe, the telling part of it. And so again, totally okay that we did not finish. It just gives you some ways to think about how you're going to use this within your classroom. Okay, so feel free to finish brainstorming, reflecting on how you want to use this within your classroom um, as you're working through. Okay. Awesome. I love seeing the sketches. I love seeing your ideas as well. I will probably download this CSV file right here if everybody's okay with me doing that. And I'll just share like, how are we thinking of implementing this? How are we thinking about rolling out? Because there's so many ways that we learn from the community. So if anybody's not okay with me sharing, let me know, but I'm going to download, I'll kind of have AI summarize it. It won't share your name. Probably I'll just say like leave names out, but that way we can see how other folks are using Sketch and Tell within our classrooms. Awesome. So make sure that you check out this slide too. It has a lot of ideas for math, science, ELA, all subjects. So again, there's going to be a lot of resources there to support you with Sketch and Tell in your classroom. Again, I'm going to download again all of your ideas that you did from that space. So that way we have everybody's ideas in here. There was like 20 of us in this room. So we're able to see a bunch of other ideas too. That sub-plan one is a great idea. And so there is a Facebook group. So make sure you join the Facebook group in order to learn from others. So there is an EduProtocols community. There are over 20,000 educators sharing in this space. So make sure to look for templates and ideas there too. Make sure you check out the books as well. And then again, thank you so much for joining me. To access the slides and the resources are going to be right here at this link. I'm going to put it in the chat again. So that way, if you need the resources, fill out that Google form. I'm going to send an email. I'm going to search for Sketch and Tell. I'm going to download our CSV so we can gather everybody's ideas from that space and how we can use Sketch and Tell within our classroom. If you have any questions, let me know. Just respond back to my email. Happy to help and happy to support.